Welcome to the Hunt Fish Travel podcast, the first and longest running female hosted hunting podcast. It's all deer all the time. Whether it's public or private, she's helping you navigate your trip of a lifetime. And now here's your hostess, Carrie Zilka.
Welcome to the Hunt Fish Travel podcast. I am your hostess, Carrie Zilka. I am super excited about this episode because we have CJ Davis, CEO, owner of Montana Decoy, and yes, I know you're probably tired of me talking about Montana Decoy because they are my favorite decoys, hands down, forever. They have been so consistent in helping me kill turkeys, it's not even funny. So, CJ, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Thank you for inviting me, Carrie. It's good to catch up again.
I know. We were just talking a little bit for the listeners. We were just talking about, like, with everything going on, I swear, all I'm doing is sitting around and thinking about hunting season. I'm so excited to go hunting this weekend because I'm getting out of the house. So,
amen to that. It's been crazy. It's the only way you can describe it.
I know. Are you guys on total lockdown? I'm assuming there too. Are they?
We are. It's a little different. I feel like it's always different in the South, but that's maybe because that's just where I live. But, you know, the traffic on the road near the place I hunted this morning hasn't slowed down a bit. There's still logging, which is considered agriculture, is going on. So there, you know, I'm definitely in a rural area for sure. But like, you know, a lot of the smaller restaurants just shut down and said, we'll see you when this is over. But there are a lot of people out of work around here too. But I think being more ag related, we don't see it quite as bad as maybe some of the more urban areas in the state would.
Well, speaking of hunting in South Carolina, let's talk a little bit about deer hunting in your state. So, do you guys have a crossbow season there?
We do not, but you can use a crossbow in archery or muzzleloader or rifle.
Oh, that's interesting. I was just curious because that's a relatively new thing here in Wisconsin.
Ironically for us, you couldn't in the past use it for turkey hunting. You could use a shotgun or a regular bow, but you couldn't use a crossbow. And I think that was just some weird language, and they finally addressed that a few years back. So that's legal in there now too.
Right, because you'd think you'd want people to use a crossbow rather than a regular bow, just for, you know, consistency or.
And our state is totally different because in the lower part of it, the rifle season opens August 15th or 16th and runs until January. So that entire time it's open to guns. So if someone wants to hunt with a crossbow or a regular bow or whatever, you know, what difference does it really make? They're obviously handicapping themselves on purpose. So, but the upstate where I live, we have a archery season that opens September 15th. And again, that could be crossbow or vertical bow. Mm-hmm. And then we have a muzzleloader season. And then I think the 10th of October, the regular rifle season opens and runs until January 1. Okay.
And just looking at the non-resident pricing, am I understanding this right? You buy an annual, say you wanted to buy an annual hunting license for $125, and then in addition, you would pay the $100 and that would get you deer, turkey, and bear?
You have to have a big game permit. And then there's tags on top of that. So, And I can't remember, for non-residents, you only get 2 turkey tags. Residents get 3. And the deer tag, I think you get $2, one of which has to meet a certain size. And then you can buy additional doe tags that are valid, I think, starting October 1st or something is how that works. That's really and so you buy your tags and you can hunt wherever you want to within the state. Mm-hmm. But you have to use those tags when you kill a deer, obviously. It's not like some states you draw a tag in a certain zone. We have tags for the state. Now, there may be a little bit of difference, like when season's open and things like that you have to pay attention to, but that's usually related to if you're hunting in the lower part of the state or the upper part of the state.
Sure. So upper versus lower, is it much different in the way you might hunt, or is it real similar? Like, it's very different. You would hunt very differently for whitetail deer in lower Wisconsin than you would up in the big woods up in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, you guys are broken, like kind of ag
Yep.
and then big woods. So what South Carolina has is an abundance of pine trees. there's still a lot of hardwood in places on the rivers and creeks and stuff like that, but the pine tree is kind of the cash crop in the ag world for South Carolina. You get down to the lower part of the state, there's still plenty of bean farmers and corn farmers and some cotton and things like that, but it's not across the state is not like that anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. But the way most people would deer hunt, the bulk of them are going to be rifle hunters. That's just true wherever you go. But South Carolina, you can legally bait. So I suspect there's a lot of shooting houses and bait piles and things like that. The lower part of the state tends to run towards larger land holdings, bigger hunt clubs, private landowners, whatever. There's still some public ground down there too. And you come up to the upstate and you get kind of a little more fragmented, a little smaller properties. And I'm speaking in some pretty broad generalizations. Somebody that's listening could correct me 1,000 times on this, because you can go find either or on either side. But it's a little more fragmented, a little smaller. You definitely don't see the big ag fields up here that you would down there in certain areas. And they being the DNR, legalized baiting here, I think 3 or 5 years ago. So even in the upstate, you can bait now. And I shouldn't say the DNR did it. I should say the legislature did it, because we're an odd state. The DNR makes recommendations, but our legislature is the ones that decides the exact rules and laws as it pertains to the natural resources, which is not my favorite thing. Yeah. I feel like the people that are experts at it should be the ones making the decisions without input from politicians, et cetera, et cetera. So they have done some good things, I agree with. I think lowering our turkey limits from 5 to 3 for residents and from 5 to 2 for non-residents is a needed thing, because I feel like our turkey's population is declining. I feel like our deer population is increasing, and I think that's probably a function of habitat change. There was a lot of clear cutting in the 90s and early 2000s, and we're seeing that timber growth now to where there's more clear cutting. And in my part of the world, the best deer habitat is a pine plantation that's 3 to 10 years old or something. There's a lot of browse. There's a lot of cover. It's hard to see them in it. Just makes for much better habitat. It makes for some great hiding habitat as well as food habitat all in one.
So you guys don't really have to deal with the CWD then, I'm assuming, if baiting has been made legal.
We have not had a case of CWD. But one would think, and I would argue, that in today's environment, with CWD as rampant as it is, and it has been found in southern states, I think Mississippi, there's no reason it couldn't be here. So why would you legalize baiting in the state? CWD was a thing, and we legalized baiting. That doesn't jive with me. And I don't feel like baiting is the greatest PR move on behalf of any DNR agency. But again, I would reiterate, I don't think the biologists are the ones that would disagree with me. I think the politicians are the ones that would disagree with me on that. I feel like the biologists I talked to, felt a little handcuffed and their recommendations weren't followed. And, it is what it is. It's the world you live in. But
well, sure, because the lobbyists are just thinking of the tourism dollars they can draw in by being like, hey, look at how easy it is to kill some deer here.
Yeah, and we're not known for big deer. We're just known for, like August 15th, if you kill a buck, there's pretty good odds he's going to be in velvet. And I know that's a very unique animal. You could go out to California. I think there's a deer season out there that opens in July, but you can't just go everywhere and expect to be able to hunt when the deer are still in velvet. So that's a neat draw. And then, the higher limits where, even a non-resident could kill 2 bucks and several does, or 2 turkeys, or, back when it was 5, I remember having outfitters tell me that was why they booked a lot of non-residents, because they wanted to come down and try their best to kill 5 turkeys. So, it was a draw, and I'm sure that hurt their wallet or whatever, but still, if the resource is damaged to the point of no return, it hurts everybody's wallet.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of outfitters in South Carolina? You'd think that there would be just outfitter on top of outfitter on top of outfitter in Wisconsin. I do not find this to be the case.
I do not find it to be the case here either. I feel like there are more in the lower part of the state, again, taking advantage of that earlier season, et cetera, et cetera. And there's probably, I can think of 2 that were in the upstate that have since gone out of business, but there are a lot of hunt clubs, that you become a member of and pay X amount a year, but it's not what would be a true commercial operation.
I don't know. I feel like outfitters are just more popular out west around here. And with the advent of YouTube and blogs and how-to videos, I feel like there's a lot more DIY hunters rather than where outfitters is the way to go. I could be wrong. That's just a general observation. That's that's mostly what I do because, I don't know, I enjoy it and there's ample information available at my fingertips. So, but.
And I probably would guess you feel exactly like I do about like all that stuff is awesome and like Onyx maps and all these things that make it easier. I want to be the one that has it, but I don't want everybody else to have it. But that's just not how it works out.
I know. And
I like doing things myself too. I want to go do it myself. And if I fail, well, I just failed, whatever. But
I know.
I want to do it myself. I don't want to feel like I killed this elk because this guy took me and held my hand and called and did all that. I've done that. I want to graduate to something different,
Yeah. Well, and too, as I get older too, and I get, as you get older, your jobs become more and more demanding, and for some reason you work more and more hours. So I do understand the appeal of outfitters to not, because especially with deer hunting, man, that's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours that, you're basically paying an outfitter to do on your behalf. But I do doing it. That's probably why I never kill anything, because I try to do it all myself. But.
I wish there were more outfitters that were like DIY outfitters. Like, here's the lodge. We'll handle the meals.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about cooking after you get in. You just go hunt. Here's the map of the 5,000 acres, and we'll charge you a couple $100 a day for the room and board, and you handle the hunting.
Right? But
here's this lodge. But you don't really see as much of that.
No, you don't. That would be nice, because then you get, I don't know, you just feel that much more accomplished when you figured it out. You outsmarted that buck yourself.
But, no doubt.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to ask you before we started talking about it, I'm sure being a good hostess, you did all your research, but what was your perception of South Carolina from a hunting tourism standpoint before we started talking?
Well, you got to remember, I come from a state that, we are bananas, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when it comes to tourism. Like, the amount of advertising and dollars that we bring in just on deer hunting alone is astronomical. I actually think I found a lot of the websites. I found your DNR website to be very friendly, number one. And I do a lot of these interviews with the southern states, and other than the size of the deer, obviously we just have a little bit bigger bodied deer. I don't find it to be that differently. According to this random website, I don't know how accurate it is, full disclosure, but it did say that in 2000, your deer population peaked around 1.2 million. Well, that's what we have estimated here too. So your hunting regulations are way more liberal. Ours are ridiculous. Ours are just stupid, complicated. They used to be really simple.
Does Wisconsin still have earn a buck in certain areas, or did that completely go away?
That completely went away. Now you have to pick the county you're in, and you have to pick whether you're going to be hunting public or private, and you can't have a buck for both, or a tag for both. For does, your extra doe tags. And I think you get one tag. It's like buck is the whole state, but any additional tag, and it's so stupid. So if I'm hunting public land on the, where two counties butt up against each other, which happens a lot, it's just dumb. So I should buy a tag for each county? Screw you guys.
That's a little weird.
It's overly complicated, and I think we just have like a board too that creates all the laws from input from the DNR. So I don't know.
I used to come up to Wisconsin and hunt pretty much every year around Madison, and my friend still lives there, and he went elk hunting with me last year, and we talked about, it's been a year since we've done the deer hunt thing up there. Of course, we're doing it, we're staying at his house. It's all on him. I'm always willing to drive to Wisconsin for a great deer hunt, but it just seems like you telling me the deer population numbers are about the same. Let's just assume the amount of rural acreage is about the same. And I know everybody says their deer are tough to hunt wherever you are, and at certain times they can absolutely be as tough as anywhere else. But every place that I've gone in the Midwest, and let's include Tennessee and Kentucky and even Virginia, which are, southernish, it just seems like you get a lot more intense rutting activity for a longer period of time than what I have seen here in South Carolina. And I've lived in the South my whole life, and I've grown up in South Carolina, moved away for a few years, moved back. So I've got a lot of time of hunting in this place, and I'm 47 years old, and I've got a lease that I'm still a member of that I've been hunting since I was 20. And just to see the habitat changes, the deer population changes. You know, there used to be 5 of us that hunted that lease, and we'd all go in and fully expect in the early part of rifle season that all of us could kill a buck. It was just a matter of how picky we wanted to be. Now it's just me and one other guy, and if we kill 1 buck off the place every 2 years, we're knocking it out of the park. But part of that is we're being a little more picky. I'll admit that. But the other part of it was the timber around it grew so big, then there's no food up under it. And we were very limited in the food plots we could add. And there were white oaks, you know, massed producing oak trees on the place, but that's really only a benefit for a very short window out of an entire deer's year. So I feel like now that that timber has been cut and has been replaced with that early successional growth, you know, we're starting to see more and more deer. And it's just like a bell curve, I guess. I don't know that that's the right word. I'm not very good at statistics and math, but that curve relates to the timbered habitat. You can always make habitat improvements, but I think in a lot of other places, the timber industry isn't as avid as it is in Georgia and North Carolina part of the world. So I feel like it really has a dramatic impact on it.
Yeah, that very well could be. And I wonder if, you know, you always think of southern states as being super sunshiny, like you guys get a ton of sunshine. In November, there'll be weeks where we don't even see the sun. So, and I know the rut has to do with available daylight hours, even artificially compacted by cloud cover and stuff like that. So I wonder if that's why, I don't know. That's a very interesting observation. Now you kind of got me thinking.
And what really makes that weird to me is I go hunt in Alabama. I have a friend that lives there. You'll notice all my friends, I have access to hunt through them. That's not why they're my friends, I promise. But I go down there and hunt, and their rut is like the last part of January, first part of February,
right.
And there's all these reasons that they'll tell you, well, it was the deer we stalked from wherever, and they're adapting to this or whatever. But that's not that much lower, really, than where I am in South Carolina, and our rut is the last part of October. And that has been that way for years. You would think over time that late January rut would be creeping up, or Georgia's rut would be creeping down, or, you know, it would kind of find that balance point, but it just really hasn't.
It is weird.
It's odd to me. And they have that, I'm talking more about Alabama than I am South Carolina. That's not why you called it, but they have that very fertile band, the black belt.
Yes.
That really does impact the size of the deer. And, you know, the deer, or all the animals, are a reflection of their latitude and what's in the dirt. You know, the plant that they eat, whatever it is, if it's browse or food plot, it's just a transfer agent. That band of black dirt through there makes a huge difference. And I see a lot of stuff. They have the Black Belt Tourism Society or something. I'm getting the name all wrong, but they do a fantastic job of talking about their hunting and opportunity. And I know there are a lot of outfitters over in that part of the world that tout that same benefit of it. It's just really interesting that's just as rural, if not more so, than South Carolina, but it's that much different in certain areas.
I know. Those deer, they're wily creatures. That's why we love them. They make no sense.
No doubt.
No sense.
The only thing predictable is they're unpredictable.
Yes, exactly. Is that they will be in front of your stand when you go in for lunch. Like, that's the only thing that's guaranteed.
No doubt. And the DNR here in South Carolina, going back to the baiting thing, I remember they did a study based on hunter observations of areas that were baited versus areas that weren't baited. And once they started baiting and started hunting, the observations went down because the deer would just come to it wasn't, you know, it was a artificial food source. So they just really could go to it whenever they wanted to. Yeah. So they choose to go to it at night when it's safe. Of course,
totally became nocturnal when they felt that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's crazy.
Nice. I know. It's so fun trying to figure them out.
I think the average person that comes to South Carolina to deer or turkey hunt, though, is probably, you know, like maybe they have a relative that lives here or something, and there's a tie-in or a friend. Mm-hmm. But I feel like they're more local like, maybe they're in North Carolina or something like that, whereas I feel like the people that are non-residents that go to Colorado to hunt, they may be coming from South Carolina. They fish in a much bigger pond, so to speak. But I could be wrong about that.
No, I agree with that. Well, and especially the western states, the big draw is the species that we don't have, say here in Wisconsin, or, the elk or the mule deer and stuff. I just can't imagine. I have a hard time thinking about, like, paying. I went and hunted in Illinois for the shotgun weekend once, and it was like $350. And I was just like, I can't even believe that I'm paying this much money to hunt in a state that has the same species that I have in my backyard. Oh my God. Like, I'd have a hard time with that, but I don't know. I've hunted out of state too for whitetail deer, but I don't know. I feel like you don't really think of the southern states when it comes to big, trophy whitetails or whatever, which I think is doing a disservice to those states, because you guys have some decent sized deer. You got nothing to sneeze at for sure.
And they look that much bigger because they only weigh 180 pounds, where your deer weigh 280 pounds.
Exactly.
Have you played the point game with, like, the western species, like elk or anything like that yet?
No.
That makes me appreciate South Carolina so much easier, because you can
Right.
you can literally wake up this morning and go, you know what, I think I'm going to go turkey out this afternoon, and you can
Right.
get everything you need and go turkey out.
Right, exactly. I know.
I love to hunt in Wyoming in the Bighorns. I think that is a gorgeous place, and I don't mind talking about it because the point creep on that thing makes it ridiculously hard for anybody to go out and draw some of those tags. Like, when I first hunted it, I drew it with, I think there was 3 of us, and you kind of spread your points out to find the average, and I think we drew it with like 1.5, 2 points. I don't know that I'll draw it with 8 points now.
Right. I know. Too fun.
And we say hunter numbers are going down. Who are all these people applying for Wyoming now if our hunter numbers are going? Did they all just decide Wyoming was the state now, or what?
They're like, ooh, I heard CJ is going to put in for them, so that must be a good
tip.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I need to start spreading disinformation about, it's 32 points to draw it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
$1,400 for the tag. Don't believe the website. I'm telling you, that's what it is.
That's just the deposit.
So what would you tell me? Say I call you up and I'm like, man, I want to come and bow hunt South Carolina. What area would you suggest that a person who has, say, a week to get it done, go hunt?
Well, so we're hunting public land, or you got a buddy, or how are we playing that out?
Public land.
So I would ask you, are you used to hunting in very choppy terrain, mountainous? I know we're in South Carolina, but it still affects the thermal situation. And I think you have to develop a skill set to hunt that really cut up terrain like that. And if you said yes, I would encourage you to hunt in the upper part of the state, just because of how pretty it is. I think there's some bigger blocks of timber that you can get into without a whole lot of other pressure, and I think there's some access you can find through lakes and stuff like that. And we also benefit from Corps of Engineer property around a lot of our lakes. And if you had access to a boat, that just opens up a whole other world, especially for turkey hunting, but definitely for deer hunting too. And you get on some of those public lands in the middle of the state where I live, you'll find pigs too, so you can kind of make it a combo hunt for nothing else.
Nice.
And in the middle of the state, we do have a lot of national forests too. There's a lot of roads through it. There's, some choppy places in terms of terrain, but also in terms of land ownership. But with, some of the apps that are out there now, it's pretty easy to find those boundaries and slip in. I still see the same old thing that everybody talks about, a closed gate. People don't want that far past it. So if you're willing to put in that little bit of time hiking in there, you got a deer cart that you can roll with your stuff on it, or to get a deer out, you can have some good hunting. And I would target, even though you'd be competing with rifle hunters, I feel like I would target that October time frame just to take advantage of the mass crops, because a lot of the national forest tends to be older, more mature hardwood. They just don't harvest it like a private landowner can. And there's a lot of big blocks of hardwood. So I would search for closed roads, blocks of hardwood that are inaccessible, to the lazy person and try to plant it when the deer are up and moving because of the rut, but they're also targeting those, white oaks, swamp chestnut oaks, which are a white oak too, but they drop a little earlier around here. And even sometimes earlier, you can find a type of red oak that we have around here that drops a large acorn that looks like a white oak a little bit, but it's obviously a red oak. Those tend to drop sometimes at the end of September. And if you knew about that from previous years, you might move your date up a little bit, because an oak tree that's dropping, that's one of a few in an area that has next to a thicket or a private land barrier or something like that, that can be a really sweet spot, whether it's on public or private. So that middle October to end of October time frame is, despite you're going to put up with more competition because there'll be rifle hunters out there and you would need to wear your orange and all that kind of stuff. But I just feel like the hunting would be so much better than like trying to sneak in on opening day of early September. The stuff you would need to find in early September is kind of harder to do on an app.
Yeah.
You can, muscadines and things like that they're feeding on, the types of browse, it's kind of hard to pinpoint that from an app. And I know you'd want to do a lot of scouting before you ever left Wisconsin to come down here. So
sure. Interesting. Good tips. Very good tips. I'm just kind of tooling around like a map of South Carolina. Man, you guys have a lot of just green and rivers and lakes, and my God.
I'm pretty much in full bloom right now.
Seriously, this is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of, and yours seems to be like, I don't know, just I don't know how to explain it, like broken up with lakes and stuff, where we have a lot of lakes up north too, but all these little patches and fingerlings of like DNR land and stuff. It's pretty interesting. I'm just chewing around like.
Yeah, there's a lot of dirt. Normal years, like I was joking earlier with you, there are a lot more folks out hunting those places this year than there normally are, because unfortunately people aren't working. So they're out hunting, or they're like me, they're working from home and they're working from the field for the first couple hours, however you want to justify that. But.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Actually, I would probably tell you, if you were coming to South Carolina, if you were thinking, boy, I'd like to start coming there regularly, I would almost tell you to start off turkey hunting. Because
really?
You could come and hit those same areas, put your boots on the ground while you're chasing a turkey, and you may still can run into a pig that you can shoot with your turkey gun, or bow. You can bow hunt turkeys. And you're kind of scouting it fast and furious on the ground. You're listening for gobbles, but you're covering a lot more ground than you would while you're turkey hunting. You cover a lot more ground than you would while you're deer hunting. So you kind of build a basis and remember some places and make some notes. And then when you come back to deer hunting, that October time frame, you're a little bit ahead of the game, I would feel like.
That's good to know. So let's segue into, speaking of turkey hunting and stuff, let's segue into your company. Why don't you tell the listeners exactly what, if they don't know by now, they are not listening to my show, but tell them, they're probably literally annoyed with me sometimes. Because you and I, I've been a fan of your company for, probably ever since you took it over, because I've known you since you were repping for Nikon a million years ago.
It does seem like a million years ago,
doesn't it? Right? Like, I still have that one picture of, I forget who it was that you and I were sitting with at Bowcast at the Bird, like 11 years ago or something ridiculous. We all look so young and skinny and
yeah.
So, tell the listeners about Montana Decoy.
So Montana Decoy is everybody says they're a different company, but if you compare us to the competition in the decoy space, we really are different. Our decoys always have a few things going for them, and that's kind of the Bible for building our decoys. They're based off photorealism, which means we use actual pictures to build the decoys. They're always lightweight. That is a key component, and they're packable in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Like our 3D turkeys are like a reverse slinky. You just compress it in and strap it to hold it in place so it folds up. Our two-dimensional ones, you twist fold just like the old sun visor you had in your car. And that's really what started the company back in 96. The original founder, Jerry McPherson, was hunting elk in Montana, and he just, he's hunting some fairly open area, and he couldn't I guess he couldn't close the deal. He could get them to come so close, and then, you know, they didn't see anything. They drift off, and he wanted a lightweight decoy. So he kind of built it based off that, using bandsaw blades and printed fabric and, you know, very rudimentary at first, and refined it. And that's what started the company, and then it just branched out into everything. And it was something that I always liked myself before I got involved with it, and it was kind of what I chose to use because I'm a little bit of a minimalist. I just don't like carrying a whole bunch of extra stuff. And if you're not carrying your decoy, what good is it? You're leaving it in the truck or on the side of the road, doesn't do you any good. So you need to have it with you, and not every setup justifies one, no matter what you're hunting. But when you need it, you need it. And I wanted to always have it with me. So it was a great fit for me. And now we actually do custom decoys, and we have built, everything from donkeys to zebras to mountain lions, whatever anybody wants. If we can find a picture that works, we'll build them a decoy with it. But our bread and butter is probably still, the big game stuff, elk, antelope, and deer. And then turkey is kind of a newer innovation for us when we introduced the three-dimensional ones. I think a lot of turkey hunters are more stationary than elk and stuff like that. So 3D was much more important to them, and they're not usually controlling the decoy by hand unless they're reaping or fanning or whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of evolved into a company that provides decoys to all these different segments of hunting. And really the only thing we don't do is waterfowl. And we did a little bit of that with some geese decoys, but we just didn't, I don't know if I didn't market it correctly or what, but we just never really got off the ground good with that.
I feel like turkey and deer hunters, I'm probably going to get hate mail for this, but I don't care, are a different breed of hunters than, say, waterfowl and bird hunters. Because for me, I'd love to learn how to go duck hunting and stuff, but it's archery opener. Sorry, deer takes precedence, and vice versa. It's the truth. Like, there are so many seasons and so many species that I'd love to hunt, but I only have so many weekends available to me in the 3 months that I have to get it done, so, because I have a real
I agree
job.
with you 100%. So, I've always felt like I'm a bow hunter first and foremost, and anything that I can bow hunt, that's what I want to spend my spare time chasing.
Yeah, seriously, I want to archery hunt or rifle hunt deer, and I want to hunt turkeys in the spring. Everything else is secondary, and is if I have time. If I fill my tags early, then I'll think about it or whatever. But so I would be willing to bet that would be why. Just, I guess, my unsolicited observation.
I feel like those folks that are really into duck and dove and stuff like that, they're more social hunters. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they like having their buddies and going out there with them. Where I'm totally okay leaving my buddy at the truck. He goes his way, I go mine. Yeah,
or their dogs, or just.
Yeah, they're dog people. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, where I'm totally cat.
I've got a buddy.
I need to go away for 3 days and not have to worry about finding a pet sitter.
Yeah. I've got a buddy that is into quail hunting, and that's kind of a southern thing. And South Carolina does have some pretty good quail hunting in places, although he wouldn't want me telling you that. But he will load up his truck, put his dogs in a trailer, and he will drive to Oklahoma twice a year from South Carolina. He'll drive to Maine, and there's one other place. He'll do about 4 driving trips a year, taking his dog and doing bird hunts for grouse and quail. He will not hunt pheasants, because he just calls them Chinese chickens. That's not what he's about. He's about quail and grouse.
That's hysterical.
But that's where they came from. They're non-native, so it's crazy.
We go to like the sports show, and there's always these fishing clubs up in or fishing lodges up in Canada, and a lot of them offer like the grouse hunting as well as an add-on, and I always thought about doing that. I think that'd be pretty fun.
The only grouse I've ever really killed were I think they were blue grouse on elk hunts. Like you've got the small game tag and you're chasing elk, and you run across those blue elk. They'll let you shoot at them twice, and I need that. So.
Right. Too funny. Well, why don't you tell the listeners where they can go if they're interested in checking out more of your decoys, and where they could purchase them, and what your social media channels are?
So we're on Facebook and Instagram. You can just search for us, Montana Decoy. Your local dealer, we sell to dealers. We're in some big box stores as well, or you can come to our website, montanadecoy.com. You can watch videos on how to fold them, how to use them. You can see all the different products we have. And right now we're doing free shipping, just trying to drum up some business in slow economic times. So check that out on our website. If you do see something you like, all you have to do is check a box. But MontanaDecoy.com can tell you what we have, what's available, and let you purchase it from us if you'd like.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show to chat with us here about South Carolina and Alabama and turkey and deer and, and grouse in Canada.
Yeah, I did a great job not talking about South Carolina. Yeah.
That's all right.
I'll get hate mail from my DNR too. So hey, we both got that going on.
Right. You guys suck at this interviewing stuff. And that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to find the show on iTunes. Just search for Hunt Fish Travel Podcast and hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on social media. You can find Hunt Fish Travel on Facebook, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carrie Zylka, CarrieZylka.